The deep silence of space surrounded the Argus 7 monitoring station. Commander Susan Miller yawned as she checked the time. Only 30 more minutes until her shift ended. She tapped her fingers on the console, looking forward to a hot shower and some much-needed sleep. The station orbited at the edge of human space, listening for signals from the darkness. It was mostly boring work. Routine check-ins from cargo ships, automated beacons, and the occasional space debris warning. Susan had been stationed here for 3 years now, and exciting days were rare. A sharp beep from her console broke the quiet. Susan sat up straight, suddenly alert. The station's sensors had picked up something unusual. "Computer, identify signal." "Source," she ordered. The computer's voice responded calmly. "Signal classified as SOS emergency broadcast. Human origin. Transmission protocol matches United Earth Fleet standard from year 2183. Susan frowned. That was over 70 years ago. No one used those old protocols anymore. Location of signal? Arcturus sector, quadrant 7. Susan's eyes widened. The Arcturus sector was well beyond any human settlement or known patrol route. No human ships should be out there, especially not one using protocols from 7 decades ago. She pulled up the detailed analysis and studied it carefully. The signal was weak but clear, a genuine distress call using old Earth military encryption. The identifier code embedded in the signal made Susan's heart skip a beat. USS Dauntless, she whispered. Every space cadet knew that name. The Dauntless was one of the first colony ships carrying 5,000 settlers to a promising new world. It had disappeared without a trace 83 years ago. The loss had nearly ended humanity's expansion program before it truly began. Susan quickly recorded a message to her superior officer. "Admiral Carter, Argus 7 has detected an SOS signal from the USS Dauntless in the Arcturus sector. Signal authenticity confirmed. Awaiting orders." She sent the message, knowing it would take 20 minutes to reach Earth headquarters due to the communication delay. While waiting, Susan dug deeper into the signal. It wasn't just a simple automated beacon. There were data packets attached, ship status reports, damage assessments, and fragmented crew logs. From what she could piece together, the Dauntless was damaged but partially operational. Some of the colonists were still in cryosleep. Most strangely, the log showed no passage of time, as if the ship had been broadcasting this same message continuously since its disappearance 8 decades ago. The response from Earth came faster than expected. Admiral William Carter's face appeared on her screen, his expression grave. "Commander Miller, I've reviewed your report. This situation is now classified Level 1 priority. Continue monitoring the signal but take no direct action. I'm calling an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. Stand by for further orders." Susan acknowledged the orders, though she found them frustrating. A human ship was out there sending a distress call. Every space law and tradition demanded they respond. Why the delay? What Susan didn't know was that Admiral Carter was already viewing information she couldn't access. Intelligence reports had been tracking unusual activity in the Arcturus sector for months. Unknown objects moving in patterns that suggested intelligent direction. Sensor ghosts that appeared and disappeared from long-range scans. In his office, on Earth, Admiral Carter gathered the 5 members of the Defense Council. The meeting was brief and tense. "The timing couldn't be worse," said General Richard Martinez, head of military operations. "We've got pirate activity all along the Orion. Trade routes, our fleet is stretched thin already. It could be a trap," suggested Diana Powell, intelligence director. "That signal is using codes that haven't been active in decades. How convenient that it appears just when our forces are committed elsewhere." Admiral Carter listened to their concerns, then made his decision. "The Dauntless carried 5,000 colonists. If there's even a slight chance some survived, we have a duty to investigate." He turned to his communication officer. "Prepare orders for the scout ship Hermes. They're to proceed to the coordinates and assess the situation. Observation only. No engagement unless absolutely necessary." Back at Argus 7, Susan received the new orders 12 hours later. The scout ship Hermes would pass by her station for a final briefing before heading to the Arcturus sector. Lieutenant Commander Laura Hayes, captain of the Hermes, appeared on Susan's screen. She was young for her rank, with short brown hair and alert eyes. "Commander Miller, my crew and I just reviewed the signal data. Do you really think it could be the Dauntless after all this time?" Susan chose her words carefully. "The signal is authentic. The ship identifier codes match. Beyond that, I can't speculate." Hayes nodded. "We'll find out soon enough. My orders are to maintain communication silence once we're beyond the outer beacons. If we don't report back within 72 hours, Admiral Carter will send a combat team." "Good luck," Susan said. "And be careful out there. Something about this doesn't feel right." The Hermes departed the next morning, a small, sleek vessel designed for speed and stealth rather than combat. Its crew of 12 was experienced in reconnaissance and first contact procedures. As Susan watched them disappear into the darkness of space, she couldn't shake a feeling of dread. The Arcturus sector was unexplored for a reason. Strange sensor readings and navigational anomalies had kept survey teams away for decades. Admiral Carter shared her concerns. As the Hermes passed beyond communication range, he ordered the activation of long-dormant defense protocols. For the first time in 15 years, Earth's orbital defense grid was brought to full alert status. In the vast silence of his office, Carter pulled up the classified files on the Dauntless mission. There were aspects of that colony ship's journey that had never been made public. Experimental technologies, unusual crew selections, and a destination that had been chosen for reasons beyond simply finding a habitable world. If the Dauntless had truly survived all these years in deep space, the question wasn't just how, but why now? Why, after 80 years of silence, was the ship suddenly calling for help? The answer would come soon enough, and it would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The scout ship Hermes moved silently through space, its engines barely visible against the blackness. Lieutenant Commander Laura Hayes stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the main viewport. They had been traveling for 5 days now, much longer than originally planned. "How much farther to the signal source?" she asked her navigation officer. "About 6 hours, Commander," said Lieutenant Paul Dawson. "But there's something strange about the readings. The signal seems to be moving." Laura frowned. "A distress beacon shouldn't be moving. Are you sure it's the same signal?" "Positive, ma'am. Same frequency, same ship identifier, but it's definitely changing position." This wasn't good news. A moving distress signal could mean many things, none of them matching their mission briefing. Laura decided to proceed with extra caution. "All stations go to silent running, passive sensors only. If something's out there, I don't want them to see us first." The Hermes continued its approach, now running with minimal power signature. As they got closer to the coordinates, the crew grew tense. Something about this mission felt wrong, but they all had their orders. 5 hours later, Laura stared at the main screen in shock. They had found the Dauntless, or what remained of it. The massive colony ship floated in space, surrounded by strange structures. Parts of the hull had been cut away, revealing the inner decks. Bright lights moved around the ship, clearly some kind of operation in progress. "Are those mining drones?" asked Security Chief Greg Nelson. Laura shook her head. "Not like any I've seen before. They're too organic." She was right. The objects moving around the Dauntless weren't the boxy, mechanical drones used by human mining companies. These things moved with fluid grace, their surfaces gleaming with a crystalline shine that caught the starlight. "Scan the Dauntless. I want to know if there are any human life signs," Laura ordered. The sensor officer worked his controls, then looked up with wide eyes. "Commander, I'm reading over 2,000 human life signs in suspended animation. They're alive." This was beyond anything they had expected. After 80 years, there were still survivors on the Dauntless. But why were they in suspended animation? And what were those things moving around the ship? Laura made her decision. "We need to get closer. Prepare a tight beam transmission to the Dauntless computer system. Let's see if we can access their logs without alerting whatever those things are." The Hermes moved carefully closer, using a nearby asteroid for cover. Their communications specialist sent a coded signal directly to the Dauntless's main computer. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then suddenly data began streaming back. "I've got something," said Communications Officer Lisa Moore. "Ship logs, system reports, even some video files. They're heavily corrupted, but I can piece together some of it." The bridge crew gathered around as Lisa displayed the first viewable recording. The image showed the dauntless bridge filled with panicked crew members. The captain, a gray-haired man, was shouting orders as alarms blared. "Unknown contact. All hands to emergency stations. Colonists to cryo chambers immediately." The video jumped, then showed a different scene. Strange crystalline beings moving through the ship's corridors. Crew members firing weapons that seemed to have no effect. Then darkness. Another fragment showed a laboratory setting. Human colonists in glass tubes. The crystalline beings moving among them, taking samples, performing what looked like experiments. "Turn it off," Laura ordered, her voice tight. "We've seen enough." The bridge was silent as they processed what they had witnessed. These aliens had captured the Dauntless and kept its colonists alive for study. For 80 years. "We need to report this immediately," said Greg. "This is way beyond our mission parameters." Laura nodded. "Prepare a data package with everything we've gathered. We'll launch a communication buoy back to Earth and—" "Commander?" The sensor officer interrupted. "Multiple objects approaching from behind the Dauntless. They're moving fast." On the main screen, dozens of the crystalline beings were suddenly heading directly toward the Hermes. Their cover was blown. "Battle stations, shields up," Laura ordered. "Prepare for emergency jump." But it was too late. The first of the crystalline beings reached them before the engines could power up. It latched onto the hull, its surface glowing bright blue. More followed, surrounding the small scout ship. "They're cutting through the hull," reported Greg, checking the security feeds. "Deck 3 has been breached," Laura hit the ship-wide comm. "All hands prepare to repel boarders. This is not a drill." She turned to her weapons officer. "Target the ones on our hull and fire. We need to break free." The Hermes' point defense systems activated, firing precise laser bursts at the crystalline beings. Some shattered into fragments, but others seemed to absorb the energy, growing brighter. Within minutes, the situation was desperate. The aliens had breached 3 decks. Crew reports indicated they were taking heavy casualties. The ship's systems were failing as the crystalline beings interfaced with the computer core. Laura made the hardest decision of her career. "Initiate self-destruct sequence. Authorization Hayes Alpha 70, and launch all escape pods with the mission data." As the countdown began, Laura and the remaining bridge crew raced to the emergency shuttles. Only 3 pods managed to launch before the crystalline beings overran the launch bay. Laura's shuttle tumbled away from the Hermes, its small engines pushing to maximum acceleration. Behind them, the scout ship exploded in a ball of white-hot energy, taking dozens of the crystalline beings with it. But their small victory was short-lived. More of the aliens were already in pursuit of the escaping shuttles. "Emergency broadcast on all frequencies," Laura told the 2 crew members with her. "This is Lieutenant Commander Hayes of the UEF Hermes. We have encountered hostile alien entities at the location of the USS Dauntless. They are holding human colonists captive. The aliens appear to be crystalline in nature with advanced technology. Hermes has been destroyed. Request immediate military response." As she finished recording, their shuttle rocked violently. One of the crystalline beings had attached itself to their hull. "It's cutting through," yelled Ensign Rivera, pointing at the ceiling where a glowing circle was forming. Laura grabbed the data core containing all their findings and shoved it into the shuttle's emergency beacon. "Launch this now." Rivera hit the launch controls and the small beacon shot away from the shuttle, its stealth systems activating immediately. It was their only hope of getting the information back to Earth. The ceiling panel gave way, and brilliant light flooded the shuttle. The last thing Laura saw was a crystalline appendage reaching down toward them. Back on Earth, Admiral Carter sat in his office when the emergency alert sounded. A data beacon had arrived from the Arcturus sector, broadcasting on the Hermes' emergency channel. As he reviewed the footage and sensor readings, his face grew pale. This was worse than anyone had imagined. An advanced alien species had been studying humanity for decades, using captured colonists as test subjects. Carter reached for his secure communication terminal. "This is Admiral Carter. Enact Protocol Omega immediately. I repeat, Protocol Omega is now in effect." Across the solar system, hidden bases received the coded message. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, massive doors began to open, revealing what humanity had hoped would never be needed. The Titans were awakening. The scout ship Hermes moved silently through space, its engines barely visible against the blackness. Lieutenant Commander Laura Hayes stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the main viewport. They had been traveling for 5 days now, much longer than originally planned. "How much farther to the signal source?" she asked her navigation officer. "About 6 hours, Commander," said Lieutenant Paul Dawson. "But there's something strange about the readings. The signal seems to be moving." Laura frowned. "A distress beacon shouldn't be moving. Are you sure it's the same signal?" "Positive. Ma'am, same frequency, same ship identifier. But it's definitely changing position." This wasn't good news. A moving distress signal could mean many things, none of them matching their mission briefing. Laura decided to proceed with extra caution. "All stations go to silent running. Passive sensors only. If something's out there, I don't want them to see us first." The Hermes continued its approach, now running with minimal power signature. As they got closer to the coordinates, the crew grew tense. Something about this mission felt wrong, but they all had their orders. 5 hours later, Laura stared at the main screen in shock. They had found the Dauntless, or what remained of it. The massive colony ship floated in space, surrounded by strange structures. Parts of the hull had been cut away, revealing the inner decks. Bright lights moved around the ship, clearly some kind of operation in progress. "Are those mining drones?" asked Security Chief Greg Nelson. Laura shook her head. "Not like any I've seen before. They're too organic." She was right. The objects moving around the Dauntless weren't the boxy mechanical drones used by human mining companies. These things moved with fluid grace, their surfaces gleaming with a crystalline shine that caught the starlight. "Scan the Dauntless. I want to know if there are any human life signs?" Laura ordered. The sensor officer worked his controls, then looked up with wide eyes. "Commander, I'm reading over 2,000 human life signs in suspended animation. Deep in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, something massive stirred to life. Hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid designated X7, the UES Leviathan received its activation codes. Lights flickered on throughout the enormous ship as systems dormant for decades began to power up. Captain Frank Wilson stepped onto the bridge of the Leviathan for the first time. At 52, he was one of the oldest active captains in the fleet. He had been chosen for this mission because of his experience, but nothing in his 30 years of service had prepared him for commanding a Titan-class warship. "Status report," he ordered, looking around at his newly assembled crew. Most of them, like him, had only learned about the existence of the Titans days ago. "All primary systems online, Captain," reported his executive officer, Commander Kelly Martinez. "Engine warm-up sequence is running. Weapons systems are at 60% and climbing." Frank nodded, trying to hide his amazement at what surrounded him. The bridge of the Leviathan was 3 times larger than any he had served on before. Displays showed the massive ship in cutaway view, nearly 15 kilometers from bow to stern, with weapon systems that defied conventional understanding. "How long until we're ready to depart?" he asked. 4 hours, sir," Kelly replied. "The AI cores need time to fully initialize. They've been in dormant mode for a long time." Frank had been briefed about the ship's artificial intelligence systems. Unlike the limited AIs used on standard vessels, the Titans had fully autonomous cores that controlled most ship functions. The technology had been deemed too dangerous for regular use, and was part of why the Titans had been mothballed decades ago. "Open a channel to Admiral Carter," Frank ordered. The main screen lit up with the Admiral's face. Carter looked tired, the strain of the past few days evident in his expression. "Captain Wilson, how goes the awakening?" "On schedule, Admiral. We'll be ready to depart in 4 hours. The Behemoth and Kraken report similar timeframes. Carter nodded. Good. We're still analyzing the data from the Hermes, but the situation is worse than we thought. The aliens, we're calling them the Khazaril based on fragments of their communications, have been studying us for a very long time. The Dauntless wasn't their first capture. Frank felt cold at this news. How many ships have they taken? At least 7 that we've identified from the data, all reported lost with all hands over the past century. They've been watching us, Captain, learning about us, and now they're making their move. Do we know their intentions? Carter's expression darkened. Commander Miller at Argus 7 has been working on decoding more of their communications. The Khazaril see us as a future threat to their empire. They've been debating whether to contain us or eliminate us entirely. Frank understood now why the Titans had been awakened. This wasn't just about rescuing the Dauntless survivors. This was about the survival of humanity itself. Your orders, sir? The Leviathan, Behemoth, and Kraken will proceed to the Proxima Centauri colony as soon as possible. We have reason to believe the Khazaril will strike there first. The other 4 Titans will be deployed to protect Earth and our core systems. The screen went dark, leaving Frank to contemplate the enormity of their mission. He turned to his crew. I know most of you are still adjusting to this assignment. None of us expected to be serving on a ship that most people don't even know exists. But right now, we're humanity's best hope against an enemy that has been planning our destruction for decades. He looked around the bridge, meeting the eyes of each officer. Learn your stations. Understand your responsibilities. In a few hours, we go to war. At the Argus 7 monitoring station, Commander Susan Miller hadn't slept in nearly 48 hours. After the Hermes was lost, she had volunteered to head the team working to decode the Khazaril communications. The work was difficult, but they were making progress. I think I've got something, said one of her analysts, a young lieutenant named Jack Bennett. It looks like a tactical deployment plan. Susan moved to his console and studied the decoded data. What she saw made her blood run cold. Contact Admiral Carter immediately, she ordered. The Khazaril fleet isn't just heading to Proxima Centauri. They're already there. Back on the Leviathan, final preparations for departure were underway. When the emergency alert came through, Frank read the updated intelligence and immediately called his senior officers to the bridge. Change of plans. The Khazaril attack force has already reached Proxima Centauri. Their fleet is 10 times larger than our initial estimates. We need to depart now. Sir, the AI cores aren't fully initialized, objected Chief Engineer Sam Cooper. We're running at 80% capacity at best. Frank's jaw tightened. That will have to be enough. There are 2 million colonists on New Eden. We can't wait. He turned to the navigation officer. Plot a course to Proxima Centauri. Emergency jump as soon as ready. The Leviathan's massive engines powered up, their energy signature visible as a blue glow around the asteroid. Slowly at first, then with gathering speed, the enormous warship emerged from its hiding place. Nearby, 2 more asteroids split open, revealing the Behemoth and the Kraken. For the first time in decades, the Titans were on the move. The journey to Proxima Centauri normally took weeks, even with the fastest military ships. But the Titans weren't normal ships. Their jump drives operated on principles that bent the fabric of space-time itself. Jump drives charged and ready, reported the navigation officer. Coordinates locked in. Frank took a deep breath. Execute jump. Space seemed to fold around the 3 massive ships. Stars stretched into lines, then disappeared altogether as the vessels entered jump space. The sensation was disorienting, even for experienced space travelers. When reality reasserted itself, the Proxima Centauri system filled their view screens, and it was already a battlefield. The colony's defensive fleet was in ruins. Fragments of ships drifted in orbit around New Eden, the planet's surface marked by impact craters where orbital bombardments had struck. The Khazaril fleet, dozens of crystalline vessels shaped like elaborate geometric forms, was moving into position for another attack run. Tactical assessment, Frank ordered, his voice steady, despite the shocking scene. Khazaril fleet consists of approximately 60 combat vessels, reported the tactical officer. Their largest ship appears to be about 2 kilometers in length. Energy readings suggest weapons far beyond our standard fleet capabilities. Frank nodded. And the colony? Orbital defenses are down. Ground shields are failing. Population centers are being targeted systematically. There was no time for careful planning or strategy. New Eden would fall within hours without intervention. Battle stations, Frank ordered. Notify the Behemoth and Kraken to deploy in Formation Delta. Power all weapon systems to maximum. Throughout the massive ship, crew members raced to their positions. Weapon stations that had never been used in actual combat were manned and brought online. We are being scanned by the Khazarl fleet, reported the sensor officer. They've detected our presence. On the main screen, several of the alien vessels broke formation, turning to face the new threat. Their crystalline surfaces caught the light of Proxima Centauri, glinting like massive jewels. Open a channel to all ships, Frank said. This is Captain Frank Wilson of the UES Leviathan. This colony is under the protection of the United Earth Defense Force. Cease your attack immediately or face the consequences. There was no response except for a sudden energy spike from the approaching Khazarl vessels. They're charging weapons, warned the tactical officer. Frank's expression hardened. So be it. Target the lead vessels and fire when ready. Show them what a Titan can do. The Leviathan's main weapon, a gravitational lens capable of focusing immense energy, powered up. At the same moment, the Behemoth launched its first wave of autonomous combat drones, and the Kraken activated its unique defensive shield system. The battle for Proxima Centauri, and perhaps the future of humanity, had begun. The first shots of the battle lit up the darkness of space. The Khazarl vessels fired beams of intense blue energy that streaked toward the human Titans. On the Leviathan's bridge, Captain Frank Wilson watched calmly as the alien weapons approached. Kraken's shield system is engaging, reported Commander Kelly. The smallest of the 3 Titans, the Kraken, moved forward to intercept the attack. Its unique defensive system activated, a rippling field of energy that seemed to bend space itself around the ship. When the Khazarl beams hit this field, something remarkable happened. Instead of being blocked or absorbed, the energy was captured and redirected. Kraken reports successful energy capture, Kelly said. They're channeling the power back into their weapon systems. Frank nodded. Tell Behemoth to launch their drone swarms. Target the smaller Khazarl vessels first. From the second Titan ship, hundreds of small autonomous drones erupted like a cloud of mechanical insects. Each was about the size of a shuttle but moved with incredible speed and coordination. The Khazarl ships shifted their fire to target this new threat, but the drones were too fast, too numerous. Our turn, Frank said quietly. Main gravitational lens at full power? Yes, sir, replied the weapons officer. Target locked on the Khazarl command vessel. Frank took a deep breath. None of them had ever seen the Leviathan's main weapon in action outside of simulations. Fire. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, space itself appeared to bend in front of the Leviathan. A distortion formed, invisible except for how it warped the light of stars behind it. This distortion shot forward at near light speed, striking the largest Khazarl vessel. The effect was unlike any weapon anyone had seen before. The crystalline ship didn't explode. Instead, it collapsed in on itself, crushed by forces that defied normal physics. Within seconds, the 2-kilometer-long vessel had been compressed to a fraction of its original size, its crystalline structure shattering under impossible pressures. Silence fell across the Leviathan's bridge as the crew stared at the results. Target destroyed, the weapons officer finally reported, his voice shaking slightly. Frank didn't allow himself to show the shock he felt. Target the next largest vessel. Fire when ready. The battle quickly turned in humanity's favor. The Khazarl fleet, while numerically superior, had never encountered anything like the Titans. Their tactics were based on overwhelming conventional forces, not facing ships that could redirect their own energy back at them, deploy swarms of adaptive drones, or create localized gravitational distortions. Within an hour, half the alien fleet had been destroyed or disabled. The remaining ships began to retreat, pulling back to regroup at the edge of the system. "They're running," said Kelly, unable to keep the satisfaction from her voice. Frank shook his head. "No, they're adapting. Look at their formation." He was right. The remaining Kazaral vessels were arranging themselves in a complex pattern, their crystalline surfaces glowing with increasing intensity. "Energy readings off the scale," warned the sensor officer. "I think they're linking their systems somehow." Frank had seen enough. "All ships, prepare for another attack. Behemoth, recall your drones. Kraken, divert all power to your shields." The Kazaral struck as one. Their ships unleashed a combined energy beam of unprecedented power, aimed directly at the Leviathan. The beam hit with such force that the massive ship shuddered. Warning alerts sounded across the bridge. "Hull breach on decks 37 through 42, reported the damage control officer. "Shields at 60% and falling." Frank gripped the arms of his command chair. "Divert auxiliary power to the shields. Prepare the gravitational lens for another firing sequence." But before they could respond, the Kazaral fired again. This time the combined beam struck the Behemoth, cutting through its outer armor. "Behemoth reports critical damage to their drone control systems," Kelly said. "Their main engines are offline." The situation was deteriorating rapidly. The Kazaral had adapted their strategy, focusing their combined firepower on one ship at a time. If they continued, even the Titans would fall. It was at this moment that the Leviathan's AI core made an unexpected decision. Without orders from the bridge, ship systems began to reconfigure. Power flowed in new patterns through the massive vessel. "Captain, something's happening with the AI," reported the systems officer, her voice tense. "It's overriding manual controls, and I think it's upgrading our weapon systems." Frank had been briefed about the Titan's unique AI systems. They were designed to learn and adapt in combat situations. But this level of autonomy went beyond anything in the briefing materials. "Let it work," he ordered. "Monitor the changes, but don't interfere." On the main screen, a new weapon system appeared in the ship's schematics. The AI had reconfigured the gravitational lens to work in conjunction with the Leviathan's secondary energy projectors, creating something entirely new. "New targeting solution available," announced the weapons officer. "The AI suggests targeting the exact center of the Kazaral formation." Frank didn't hesitate. "Do it." When the modified weapon fired, it didn't create a single gravitational distortion. Instead, it generated a web of interconnected distortions that spread outward, enveloping the entire Kazaral battle group. Space itself seemed to fold and ripple around the alien ships, trapping them in a maze of warped physics. The crystalline vessels tried to break free, but the more energy they expelled, the stronger the gravitational web became, feeding on their power. One by one, the alien ships were crushed or torn apart by contradicting gravitational forces. In less than 5 minutes, the remaining Kazaral fleet was reduced to drifting fragments. "Scan for survivors," Frank ordered, his voice steady despite what they had just witnessed. "And get damage control teams to the Behemoth. I want a full assessment of their situation." As the immediate threat subsided, Frank ordered a small team to board one of the least damaged Kazaral vessels. What they found inside shocked everyone. "Captain, you need to see this," said the team leader over the comm. "We've found human captives, hundreds of them, and not just from the Dauntless." The boarding team had discovered that the Kazaral ships contained stasis chambers filled with humans from various captured vessels. Most had been subjected to extensive study and experimentation, but they were alive. "Begin evacuation immediately," Frank ordered. "Priority on the injured, and download any data you can from their systems." As the rescue operation began, the Leviathan sensors detected something new. A massive energy surge from beyond the system's edge. More Kazaral ships were arriving, including a vessel that dwarfed even the Titans. Frank opened a channel to Earth. "Admiral Carter, this is Captain Wilson. We've engaged and defeated the initial Kazaral force at Proxima Centauri, but reinforcements are arriving, including what appears to be their flagship. Request immediate backup from the remaining Titans." Carter's response was immediate. "The other Titans are en route, Captain. but they won't arrive for at least 12 hours. You need to hold your position until then. Frank looked at the tactical display, assessing their chances. The Leviathan was damaged but operational. The Kraken's shields were at half strength. The Behemoth was severely crippled, its main weapons offline. Against them was coming an alien force that now knew what they were capable of. A force that would adapt, that would not underestimate them again. Understood, Admiral, Frank replied. We'll hold the line. He turned to his crew, who looked back at him with determination despite their exhaustion. Repair what we can. Prepare all remaining weapons. The real battle is about to begin. The massive Kazaral flagship entered the Proxima Centauri system like a mountain of crystal sliding through space. It measured over 20 kilometers from end to end, dwarfing even the Titan warships. Smaller vessels surrounded it in a protective formation, their surfaces glinting in the light of the nearby star. On the Leviathan's bridge, Captain Frank Wilson studied the tactical display with a grim expression. The odds were not in their favor. Status report, he ordered. Commander Kelly responded promptly. Leviathan's main weapons are operational, but power systems are strained. The gravitational lens needs another 30 minutes to recharge after the AI modifications. Kraken reports their shields at 40% capacity. Behemoth's engines are back online, but their main weapons remain offline. Frank nodded. And the evacuation? Ongoing. We've rescued 327 humans from the damaged Kazaral vessel so far. Medical teams report many are in stable condition despite years of captivity. Among those rescued was a woman named Alice Young, a scientist from the original Dauntless mission. Despite being in stasis for over 80 years, her mind was sharp and her information invaluable. Frank had gone to speak with her personally as soon as she was recovered. What she told him changed everything. Captain, Alice had said, her voice weak but determined. The Kazaral connected my mind to their information network while I was in stasis. I know how they think, how they plan. They're not evil in the way we understand it. They're calculating. They see humanity as a mathematical problem to be solved. Now, Frank called a meeting of his senior officers and the commanders of the other Titans via holographic link. Dr. Young has given us critical intelligence about the Kazaral, he began. They're a species that operates on pure logic. They identified humanity as a potential future threat to their empire centuries ago, when our first radio signals reached their territory. Since then, they've been studying us, capturing small groups to understand our capabilities. He paused, looking at each officer in turn. Their conclusion was that humans are too unpredictable, too aggressive to be allowed to expand into the galaxy. The attack on Proxima Centauri is just the beginning of a planned extinction campaign against our entire species. Captain Olivia Ramirez of the Kraken spoke up. So negotiation isn't an option? Actually, it might be our only option, Frank replied. According to Dr. Young, the Kazaral respect strength and rational behavior. They will eliminate threats, but they will also recalculate their approach when faced with unexpected variables. He gestured to the tactical display, where the enormous Kazaral flagship loomed. We need to show them that attempting to wipe out humanity would be mutually destructive, that the logical choice is coexistence. And how do we do that? Asked Captain John Price of the damaged Behemoth. We're outnumbered and outgunned. Frank smiled slightly. We show them what the Titans can really do. The plan was daring and dangerous. Instead of waiting for the Kazaral to attack, the 3 Titan ships would advance directly toward the alien flagship. The Leviathan would lead, with the Kraken providing shield support and the Behemoth using its remaining functional systems to project false sensor readings, making the 3 ships appear to be an entire fleet. All stations, prepare for advance, Frank ordered. Helm, take us directly toward the Kazaral flagship at 1/4 speed. The enormous human warships began to move forward, their massive engines glowing against the blackness of space. On the Kazaral vessels, sensors detected the approach and their crystalline surfaces pulsed with building energy. They're charging weapons, reported the sensor officer. Frank remained calm. Continue approach. Open a communication channel on all frequencies. He stood in the center of the bridge, straightened his uniform, and spoke clearly. "This is Captain Frank Wilson of the United Earth Defense Force Titan Fleet. We have studied your attack on our colony and understand your assessment of humanity as a threat. We are here to demonstrate why that assessment, while understandable, is incorrect." There was no immediate response from the Khazaril. Their ships continued to charge weapons, preparing to fire. Frank continued, "You believe eliminating humanity is the logical solution to a future threat. We are here to show you that such an attempt would result in mutual destruction, which serves neither of our species." Still no response. The Titans continued their steady approach. "Khazaril vessels, preparing to fire," warned the tactical officer. Frank nodded. "Leviathan AI, execute demonstration protocol." What happened next astonished even the human crews. The Leviathan's AI core, which had been analyzing the Khazaril technology and tactics throughout the previous battle, initiated a sequence that no human had programmed. The gravitational lens weapon powered up, but instead of firing a destructive blast, it created a precisely modulated field that extended outward from the ship. This field intersected with the Kraken's shield system, creating a cascading energy pattern that spread throughout the space between the human and alien fleets. The pattern formed a three-dimensional model of Earth's solar system, then expanded to show human colony worlds, and finally displayed the locations of all 7 Titan warships, including the 4 that were still en route to Proxima Centauri. It was a demonstration of power and reach, letting the Khazaril see exactly what they were facing. Then the display changed, showing simulated destruction spreading across both human and Khazaril space. The message was clear: continued conflict would devastate both civilizations. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. The Khazaril weapons remained charged but did not fire. The human ships held their position, their own weapons ready but not targeting. Finally, a signal came from the alien flagship. It wasn't a voice message or text. It was a mathematical equation, followed by a series of stellar coordinates. Dr. Alice Young, who had insisted on coming to the bridge despite her weakened condition, studied the message. "It's a proposed boundary line," she explained. "They're offering to establish a border between our territories. The equation represents terms for non-aggression." Frank looked at her. "They're backing down?" Alice shook her head. "No. They're recalculating. You've shown them that the cost of eliminating humanity outweighs the potential future threat we pose. In their logic, a defined boundary with a strong neighbor is preferable to a costly war of extermination." Frank considered this for a moment, then nodded. "Send a response. Accept their boundary proposal, but add one condition: the immediate return of all human captives from their ships and research facilities." The message was sent. Another tense wait followed. The response came in the form of small transport vessels launching from various Khazaril ships. Scans showed they contained human life signs, hundreds more captives being released. "They've accepted," Alice said, a tired smile on her face. "They're logical beings, Captain. When presented with sufficient evidence, they change their minds." Admiral Carter's voice came through the communication system. "Captain Wilson, what's happening out there?" "The remaining Titans will reach your position in 6 hours." Frank took a deep breath. "Tell them to maintain combat readiness, Admiral. But I believe the immediate crisis is over. We've reached an understanding with the Khazaril." He looked out at the massive crystalline ships facing them across the starlit void. "The SOS that brought us here has done more than save the survivors of the Dauntless. It's opened a new chapter in human history. We've proven ourselves to a power that's been watching us from the shadows. They now recognize us as equals, not as prey." 2 days later, with the rescued humans safely aboard the Titans and the Khazaril fleet withdrawing to their side of the newly established boundary, Frank stood in the Leviathan's observation deck with Alice Young, watching the stars. "What happens now?" she asked. Frank smiled slightly. "Now we prepare. The galaxy just got a lot smaller and a lot more complicated. The Titans will remain active, patrolling our borders. Scientists will study what we've learned about the Khazaril. Diplomats will work to build on this initial agreement." He turned to look at her. "And you and the other survivors will help us understand our new neighbors. Your knowledge will be invaluable." Alice nodded. her eyes on the distant stars. They respected our strength in the end. That's important to remember. The Khazar'll only respect those who can stand against them. Frank's expression grew serious. Then we'll make sure we can always stand against them, but we'll also try to build something better than just a standoff. Humans are good at finding unexpected solutions. As the massive Titan ships turned toward Earth, carrying their rescued passengers and news of humanity's new place in the galactic order, Frank couldn't help but think about the strange path that had led them here. A distress call from the distant past had awakened humanity's sleeping giants and revealed both a terrible danger and a new frontier. The SOS from the Dauntless had changed everything, and whatever came next, humanity would face it with eyes wide open, no longer alone in the darkness between the stars.